we got to start with the FA Cup final.
Of course.
Oh, shall I mention it's the oldest cup competition in the world? Because I don't think that's been mentioned at all.
I didn't know.
Manchester City, 2 down, 1 to go.
Yeah.
They beat Manchester United 2-1. Look, I don't want to play this down because it is a leg in the treble, but I think it's very obvious they're focused on the Champions League, yeah? And
yeah, although I thought they celebrated rightly. I mean, Pep looked quite emotional, maybe because they hadn't won the FA Cup since 2019, which is for a team that wins everything, certainly domestically, that still feels like a long time. And also, I think because they knew that it was one more in the bag, and like as you said, 2 down, 1 more to go in the Champions League on Saturday, and I think they knew that the dream of that treble is getting closer. So,
although it's interesting because I was really struck by what Pep said after the game, where he said, more than the treble, for me, it's about winning the Champions League.
Yeah.
I have a sense there'll be something missing if we don't win the Champions League. It's interesting because this isn't something he said before, at least not previously, right? He always gets asked the same questions. Every Champions League game, they ask him, well, how important is it to you to win the Champions League? And he always comes back and he says the usual stuff. He says, well, actually, in the Champions League knockout competition, anything can happen. It's partly out of your control. We just want to get better every single day, blah, blah, blah. All the coach speak. And it's all true, and I understand why he says it. But here, he said something different. And he said, this is really important. I want to put more pressure on the players, not that they need more pressure. And it's funny because writ large, this isn't a situation where the owner is obsessed with winning the Champions League, because I don't think Sheikh Mansour cares one way or the other. It's not critical to City's business model, whatever that may be.
It's the holy grail for them, though. They've been chasing it since they took over.
But I would argue it's certainly not for the fans who boo the anthem. All right, the City fans are global and diverse, obviously, but the ones who show up at the Etihad who boo the UEFA anthem, I don't, obviously you want to win it, but they're not as obsessed with it as, I think this is just something that comes from Pep. I think it's important to him. I think his rational mind says this is not a measure of anything, because this is one game and anything can happen and stuff is out of your control. In the same way stuff was out of his control when they played in the last Champions League final and they lost to Chelsea, right?
Yeah.
But he has an emotional mind too, because he's an ex-player. He's a human being. And emotionally, winning a Champions League without Lionel Messi, that resonates.
Yeah, I think so. And he's probably had enough of the narrative of you haven't won it since 2011. You failed every time with great teams at Bayern and at Manchester City. And maybe this time he's a bit more open about how important this is, like you said, that he's never said before, because he feels that if they don't do it this time, I mean, come on. No, it's nothing to do with Inter Milan. It's just that they are such in great form. So are Inter. But if you take Inter away, it could be anyone that they're facing. Right. They are so good, so in control. He find almost the perfect team. He's got everything, the balance, the players, the fitness, the confidence, the momentum. There's just not... Every light is green, pretty much. So maybe that's why I think he feels like, okay, this is our time now.
You mentioned they're in control. It finished 2-1 against Manchester United. I think there's 2 ways to look at it. You can look at it and say that City controlled the game and maybe weren't at their best, but they didn't need to be, on the one hand. Yeah. Or you could look at it and say, I think in the last 15 minutes, they didn't take a shot on goal. And there was that almighty scramble at the end in front of the goal with, I think it was Varane and McTominay. 2 chances, one after the other, which could have really derailed their plans. Where do you stand?
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's why the XG, if you look at the XG, the United in the end is higher than the City one.
Substantially higher.
Yeah, I just think that the goal after 13 seconds from Gundogan just changes everything. From a City point of view, from a United point of view, it just changes everything, because now if you're City, you can control the game a bit more, which they've done really, really well lately, especially since the John Stones transformation, put it that way, in midfield, where they can pass the ball, wait. If there's a moment to pounce, they will. I think the goal that they conceded at a time where they were really in control of the game, that penalty that we can talk about a bit later, so again re-changes the dynamic. But they took the lead again, and after that they were in control, and I think they can soak up the pressure better than they ever used to before under Pep. And if United did what they had to do, and I think United deserve some credit because they fought it hard, but in the end I think just City had a bit too much.
All right, Jules, let's roll on with the refereeing decisions. That there were 2 that there may be more. There were 2 that obviously stood out for me. One was the Casemiro tackle. I personally was surprised that was not a red.
Yeah, it could have certainly a yellow for sure. Then you can discuss the red or not. I mean, I think the most absurd is that the referee gave a foul for Casemiro and for United to the point that you're thinking like, if you look again at the incident and the way Akanji's body is and his leg and where Casemiro come in, you even wonder how you can give a foul for Casemiro, a foul made by Akanji himself when he could have lost his ankle clearly because Casemiro goes in with the studs. Maybe
he felt. I'm trying to work it out. The referee is Paul Tierney.
He was great. He was well positioned as well.
I don't think he's a good referee. And look, I know this is not a good week to be critical of English referees, but I want to say this again because people don't seem to understand it. Not all referees are created equal, right? I don't think he's particularly good, and I think he really blew this call. Maybe he was thinking that maybe he was thinking Akanji was somehow obstructing Casemiro. It's the only thing I can think of.
Maybe,
and then maybe he didn't see where the foot went, and maybe the VAR said, well, did he see it clearly? He was in a good position, blah, blah, blah. Maybe VAR can't intervene on a yellow. Maybe VAR said, well, probably should have been a yellow card, should have been
they could only have intervened to give a straight red, which they clearly didn't think it was.
But yeah, that wasn't good.
And that was really early in the game as well, and right by the benches, which you can just imagine. I think it was by the benches, which you can just imagine the reaction of Pep Guardiola, especially, and a few of the City players who were quite mad straight away.
The other point, which I'm sorry, there's rules. They've really simplified this for a long time. The Jack Grealish one, the penalty the penalty that was given. He jumps up to try to head the ball. He doesn't get it. He's still coming down when the ball comes off of Wan-Bissaka. His arm is in the air, and it strikes him. I think the directives that are given to referees are very, very clear on this.
No.
Peter Walton had a piece in the Times explaining this. And it's defined as an unnatural position when your arm is above your head, which it was. There's a definition of it. They're not saying your arms can't go up when you jump. It's just they can't go up higher than your head. And there's really no reason why your arm should be higher than your head even when you jump, right? It can be away from your body if it's not. It can be natural. It can be away from your body and natural if you're jumping. Here, he's coming back down. His arm is still up there. The fact that he's not looking isn't relevant.
Yeah.
These are the directives that were given.
Yeah.
And the VAR applied
the rules.
I don't know there's much discussion that we can have here.
I think
yet people keep going on and on.
No, because I think, and this is where maybe we disagree, I just think there's a point where the interpretation of the referee. So we go back, I think we mentioned it the other day, the penalty that City got against Leipzig in the second leg of the last 16 of the Champions League, where I think Ruben Diaz heads the ball and he literally flicks the finger of maybe...
I'm blanking on this.
Henrich or something. Yeah, I can't remember who it was, and it's given as a pen. And of course, the ball touched the fingers like it touches the fingers of Grealish without even changing really the trajectory of the ball or even the pace on the ball or anything like that, which is a bit similar to this one because...
I think that's the big thing that makes it, because if the ball whacks into
if it hits your arm and stop here...
Then I think we would be feeling a little bit different about this.
Yeah.
But the combination of those two things, the fact that the touch was so slight...
Yeah.
I'd be okay with a tweak on the rules.
Me too, completely.
And a level of discretion when it doesn't materially impact anything, which as was the case here.
Yeah.
Basing it on this idea that the arm's in the air, people say, oh, what's an unnatural position? They've told you.
Yeah.
It's explained.
I'm with you on that. I just think that if I think, and we can easily incorporate, and the new boards of former players, who are like Patrick Vieira and everybody, like you could just say, if the trajectory of the ball doesn't change at all, because it's the slightly touch of the tip of your fingers, for example, like in the case or in the City Leipzig game, then just don't give it. Just don't give it.
You could probably do that. I want to talk a little bit about Manchester United. I did a piece up last week sort of comparing, it's a favorite theme of mine, that Erik ten Hag was hired because of what he achieved with Ajax 21-22.
Yeah.
Right? And you can see, I went through the transfers, and help me out here if I'm wrong on this, right? He tried to bring in players like the ones he had at Ajax, right? Lisandro is like Lisandro, and obviously Anthony is Anthony.
Yeah.
Eriksen's kind of like Davy Klaassen, a little bit, right? Yeah. Casemiro's kind of like Edson Alvarez, better Edson Alvarez. And then, obviously, he couldn't bring in a center forward because that fella Cristiano was there when he did. He brought in, like...
Weghorst and Haller, you could say that even.
He's an off-brand Sebastian Haller, maybe, like...
A cheap version?
But you could see that. But then, ultimately, in the way they play, there's no comparison, right? They don't play anything like that Ajax team.
No.
And I got our colleague, Ryan Hanlon, to help me out on this, and... two very obvious things. Pressing, right? Yeah. Passes per defensive action. Ajax were by far number one.
In an easier league, though.
That's fine. But this tells you about how a team plays, right? Not how well they do it.
But it's easier to do in an easier league.
It's easier to press? No, you can press anywhere.
It's easier to have an efficient press against teams that are not very good than against teams that are...
The way PPDA is counted, like they count fouls and stuff in it. So it's not even necessarily like... in the Premier League, though, they're like 14th or 15th, right? Yeah. So clearly he abandoned that side of things. And look, I think you have very valid reasons to do it because it was important for him not just to instill his philosophy style of play, but to get results while doing it this year. So
sure.
I'm not criticizing
the two first games of the season,
But it does, and the other thing, when this ties into David De Gea, your favorite subject, goalkeeper, Ryan puts a lot of stock into goalkeeper kicking distance or whatever it's called, right? Which is basically from a goal kick, does the ball go long or does it go short? Yeah. With De Gea, it always goes long.
Yeah.
Last year, it always went short because they were trying to build up from the back, right? I think they ranked 15th or 16th by this metric. And this speaks to what we said about De Gea is not very good with his feet.
Not very good at all.
He wins those Golden Glove clean sheets thing, which people seem to think that clean sheets. Oh, look, he's got more clean sheets. I think clean sheets is a really stupid metric. Seriously, I think it's a really, frankly, irrelevant metric. Relative to goals conceded or whatever. Yeah. But anyway, and this was very evident in this game. And we were talking off air, and you pointed out De Gea's kicking it long, and who's he kicking it long to? You've got Rashford competing against Rodri and Stones. I mean, they have
Ruben Diaz,
4.5 center backs on the pitch.
And we looked at the stats, and De Gea had 26 long kicks, twice more than Ortega, who had 13, for 30% accuracy. So I think he made 8 out of 26. De Gea, a couple of them went to Rashford, I think, 2 to Bruno, and 2 were easy. The rest, I think, are easy to fullbacks because he can still, pass the ball at some point. But City were too happy. Every time they saw De Gea with the ball, they knew it was going to go long, and they knew they were going to win that ball. Maybe if not the first, but certainly the second ball, which they did every single time. And and you can tell me, but it's not easy for a keeper to kick the ball long. Okay, look at Ortega, 13 kicks, 9 successful, so that's a 70%. You go for 30% De Gea to 70% Ortega, and of course he's got Haaland to aim at, as we saw in the first goal. But Haaland, as we've mentioned many times, is not the best in the air. Definitely not. Certainly not.
He can chest the ball down. He can bring the ball down.
But you still have Varane and Lindelof behind you anyway. I just think that with De Gea...
The argument, though, is how do you want to die? Because if you pass it short, you're playing against the Man City press, and you're asking Varane, Wan-Bissaka, guys like that to play their way through the press, which is extremely difficult.
Exactly. I'm not really debating the tactics from Ten Hag.
You're saying he can't do it. He's screwed one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is pretty much the only thing he could do, really, against a team like City. Maybe another opponent would have been different.
This is another different. At Ajax, he had, as fullbacks, he had Mazraoui, who's a midfielder, very good on the ball, and he had Daley Blind, who has a bazillion limitations, but is also good on the ball, right?
He's a baller, for sure.
That makes a huge difference.
Exactly. And I think that Shaw can play. Wan-Bissaka, obviously not so much. But
Shaw's the only one in the back four who can play. Yeah?
Who can play like Ten Hag would want to play without Lisandro Martinez. Yeah, probably.
So,
sure.
so then either you drop Eriksen to pick up the ball in front of the keeper. I mean,
And of course, or Casemiro, which is not.
It's not a blame. It's more of an assessment of where United
Exactly,
are right
and
now.
that's why I've been saying to you, Gab, and to everybody who wants to hear that they can't keep improving under Ten Hag with De Gea in goal. For me, it's as simple as that. You take away a lot of what makes Ten Hag's team special, or very good, or very efficient, and that would be the limit. This game, as good as United were, and they were good, they played well. I like the man marking of Fred on De Bruyne. Okay, it didn't always work, but I like the idea that you could go into man marking De Bruyne, man marking Gundogan, and man marking Rodri with Eriksen, Casemiro, and Fred. That's fine with me. I like the narrow Fernandes, Rashford, and Sancho. I like how narrow they were, no problem, because obviously with the back three of City, there's less width to have. So I like a lot of the things that Ten Hag tactically put together. I just think that the limitation of that team lies mostly on the lack of a proper centre forward for sure, and on De Gea.
A couple things on here. Erling Haaland has gone 4 games without scoring.
Yeah, 1 in 8 now.
This is the longest drought of his career. He had a similar one at Borussia Dortmund. Not his career. I went back to look at Borussia Dortmund. I don't consider. I'm assuming he didn't have one like this at Salzburg. Concern? No.
I don't know, his XG was 0.7. He had that one chance. He only had 3 shots, 2 on target, touched the ball 35 times, 10 passes, 10 successful passes. They clearly used him a lot to play with his back to goal. And that worked. He's improved on that. We said that before. He could have scored. It was a game where they controlled more than they really fully attacked.
I'm not concerned at all. I don't think he's concerned. I think also some of those games he came off the bench. I'm assuming the last game of the season.
True. Yeah.
I don't think even he cares about, he won the Premier League Golden Boot. That's nice. But I don't think he was fussed. I mean, if he kept playing every game, taking every penalty, maybe gotten 50 goals. He doesn't care about that. He cares about winning, and that's what you want to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Transfer stuff, inevitably they're linked to Harry Kane. Well, you said there about the center forward thing. Harry Kane obviously would make Manchester United better.
Yeah.
But going back to the Ajax model, does Harry Kane fulfill the Haller thing, or does it then force you into a different interpretation, so maybe you spend your 100 million elsewhere?
But if we looked at the 2021 Ajax season when Tadic plays as a false 9, which I think Kane
when they won the double,
which Kane can do as well, then you could say, he fits that. He's not the Haller type, so it doesn't really fit the 22-23 season, the 21-22 season. But he would fit certainly that kind of role that Tadic had, and actually be maybe better in front of goal even than Tadic was in that season where Tadic was incredible. So I think Ten Hag Kane would work so well in that team. It would be better for Rashford, maybe even better for Anthony. I think it would be.
The question is, do you want to
signing.
spend those resources on Kane at his age?
Exactly.
And I think this is something we're going to be talking about again about this summer. Mason Mount, there's reports that they're already talking to him, £50 million offer. Again,
what, in the Eriksen role? Or
this is the thing.
How do you play Eriksen, Casemiro, Bruno, and Mount?
I think you have to start alternating them, right? Eriksen's going to be 32.
Yeah, true.
I think Mount at 50 million, if you can get a reasonable contract, it's almost like you're getting him so that others don't get him, and then he can, he'll be a contributor. It's one of the areas where you could argue United do not have a pressing need right now, but he's not going to make you worse, right? Mount's going to help, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, they need more depth. We've seen it this season.
And finally, Rafael Guerreiro is a free agent.
Yeah.
And he's been linked to Man City. I'm assuming he's going to be linked to other clubs too. He played in midfield late this year.
Pep player for that.
I think he's really good. I know people are like, but his defending. I'm like, you're an attacking fullback, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, if you're United, you just extended Keita 5-year deal. Could you wait a little while and maybe thought of this other versatile Portuguese
You've got
fullback?
Malacia as well, and Shaw. And Wan-Bissaka still, and Dalot, as you say.
Okay, is Guerreiro better than all these people you mentioned?
Yeah. I mean, he's Paris born and bred as well. So, I'm a big fan. I just think he would be such a Pep signing, incredible in midfield. I mean, Kovacic has been linked to them too.
Yeah.
Who I mean, what, Saddam Calvin? Who's gonna? You can't have Kovacic and all your current midfielders. You might lose Bernardo Silva, of course.
But you might lose Gundogan too.
And you will lose Gundogan too.
Right.
And
So
if you add
Kovacic
Guerrero,
makes sense.
Kovacic for Gundogan, I think makes sense. As in replacement
But-
if you don't keep Gundogan. And then if you bring Guerrero, can play at left back, in midfield,
You can play right back too.
right back.
You already have a Portuguese guy who does that too. Oh, that's João Cancelo. Wow,
Yeah, but
that's
he's less two-footed than Cancelo was, I think. He's still more left-footed.
No.
But yeah, I mean, that would be an amazing piece of business too.
But I think if you're Guerrero, there's other clubs that need you more. And I wouldn't be surprised if other people step forward.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.